The NFL draft is only 8 days away, and if there is anything we can safely say that will happen and take place during the 2022 NFL draft, it is that there will be plenty of trades. And of course, with the 2019 NFL draft class, and more specifically the receivers from that class looking for contract extensions, there is plenty of trade buzz around players like DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, and Terry McLaurin. Everyone knows about those, and recently Deebo deleted 49ers pictures from his social media, so who knows what will take place in his future. And by the way, as I was recording this, Adam Schefter and Ari Meirov tweeted he has requested a trade, so that kind of answers that. But everyone knows about the possibility of those guys being moved, and it's discussed quite often, and in today's video we're going to talk about a few trade possibilities no one is discussing, and there's a lot to get into, so without further ado, let's begin. And the first team we are going to discuss is the Carolina Panthers, and I realize because they need a quarterback, they are often discussed in trades. However, this is one I seriously think they should consider, and it is moving Christian McCaffrey. The Panthers have a combined 4 wins in the final 24 games played of each of the last 2 years, and Christian has played in just 10 games in the last 2 seasons. Out of the few pieces they have that's movable, and we'll say that teams would actually covet, because I'm sure they could move several players if they really wanted to, but out of the players teams would, want, CMC is near the top of the list in those players. Now, I don't think Carolina would want to move Brian Burns, and because of how good of a player Brian is, they, at the moment at least, have no incentive to trade him. But Christian, on the other hand, is a player who now has a lot of injury-related questions pertaining to his career, and there are teams in the AFC that are in a lot of ways saying, look, we have to score, and score to win games, and I realize the old saying is defense wins championships, but in an era of the NFL where offenses are protected more than ever before, think in the 70s and 80s receivers could and would get damn near killed going across the middle, I think that saying is more tongue-in-cheek than reality at the moment, and I'll get more into that later, but the concept here is the Buffalo Bills running backs in Motor Singletary and Zach Moss are not great. Are they okay or serviceable? Sure. But if GM Brandon Beane has established anything over the past few years, it's he wants a championship, and simply being okay is not good enough in Buffalo. And Carolina has a ton of incentive to trade him, as they have, count 'em, 1 singular pick in the top 100 of the 2022 NFL draft, that of course being number 6 overall, and for a team that's rebuilding, getting extra picks would go a long way. And if you're watching this and wondering why would the Panthers have any incentive to trade him, and why would head coach Matt Rhule want him gone with his job effectively on the line in 2022, and by the way, I agree that's a completely valid counterpoint and question to ask, my answer would be this. Rhule has coached 33 games with the Panthers, and CMC has played in just 10 of those games. The most amount of games Rhule has ever had him for in a row is 4, and they went 1-3 during that stretch in a game against the Arizona Cardinals, where Colt McCoy and Chris Streveler played at quarterback for them. I obviously have no idea how Matt Rhule feels about McCaffrey as a player, but I would imagine he's at the point from a business perspective where he thinks, I've gone this long without you, why not just get the picks that we desperately need and move on and call it a day? I don't think there'd be any ill will or animosity between the sides, and it would be strictly business, but I do love the possibility of CMC getting traded to a team like the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs. The next trade involves an interconference trade, and it is the possibility of Jordan Love going west, and it would be to the Seattle Seahawks. This trade makes a lot of sense for both sides, as Aaron Rodgers signed a huge extension this offseason, and it will keep him in Green Bay for what we expect to be at this point the rest of his NFL career. Green Bay is happy they keep a Hall of Fame quarterback for a few more years, while Aaron, at least we assume, is happy he stays in Green Bay. And as we know, they drafted a quarterback in the first round in 2020 in Jordan Love, who, with the extension of Rodgers, looks like at this point in time he will never see the field in Green Bay on a consistent basis. And when Green Bay extended Aaron, they lost any sort of leverage they had on a Jordan Love trade because teams know they would want to move him sooner rather than later. The reason for that is because of his first round rookie scale contract, and on top of it, we don't know for sure whether or not he will be a good NFL player. But because of the Rodgers contract extension, this lowers the cost on Love because the Packers certainly did not envision drafting a first-round player to be a backup for 4 years, then to move on and to become a free agent. They also didn't envision Aaron Rodgers winning 2 more MVPs as soon as Love entered the league, and they're not complaining about those MVPs either by any means, but they certainly were not anticipating those type of seasons from Aaron. So then you take a look at the draft capital Seattle has, and they have 3 picks in the top 41, and I would imagine Green Bay would want one of those second-round picks for Jordan Love, although I don't think Seattle would pull the trigger on one of those, given they, like everyone else, knows the ball is in their court, and to a degree of course, but they control the Jordan Love trade. And the reason they do is Green Bay recognizes they have a losing return on investment in Jordan Love, and it's a matter of when they want to pull the plug on this loss and how knee-jerk of a reaction they give to it. I am currently under the belief that Drew Lock is not the answer, and I would much rather roll with Jordan Love and give him DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and maybe Rashad Penny depending on how he plays in 2022. Of course, he had the strong finish to the end of the 2021 season. But I would be kind of surprised if Green Bay does not move Jordan Love in the next few weeks, simply because the longer they wait, the lower the return will be. The only way it rises is if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt for 4+ games and Jordan balls out with a significantly less talented receiving core than he had in the games he played in 2021. That is truly the only way it rises, and again, it would have to be for more than a couple of games because team would say, oh, it's luck or whatever reason, and that's ultimately why I would be surprised if Jordan Love is a member of the Green Bay Packers after the 2022 NFL Draft. And look, next, this is a place some fans aren't going to like, but we're going to Buffalo to discuss trading Josh Allen because he can't win big games when it matters, and I'm completely kidding. Please do not take that to heart. But we are going to the city of brotherly love, and it is to discuss Eagles receiver Jalen Reagor. With Jalen, this is an interesting one because of where he was drafted and, of course, who was drafted directly after him, and it's been a long 2 years for him. And when discussing the possibility of him being traded, there has to be 2 teams to tango, and that's the only thing that worries me with this. Look, I get it. Right now, Reagor is a draft bust on paper, but I would also be shocked if a team wouldn't want to, at minimum, give up a 6th or 7th round pick for him. This would have to be a team with a good quarterback, looking to bring in a 3rd or 4th receiver, a guy who would receive 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 targets a game, and see if he can revive his career there. I don't think Philly would care about the trading out of conference part, like that has to be mandatory, but I don't think Jalen's career is completely unsalvageable. This is a guy who 2 years ago was a good prospect when he came out of TCU, and while he was drafted a hair early, it wasn't like he was this late 5th round prospect that was taken in front of a top 2 or 3 overall player in Justin Jefferson. At worst, Reagor was a top 45 or 50 player, and it wasn't uncommon for receiver-needy teams at the time, like the Minnesota Vikings at pick 22 or 25 because they had the Bills' 1st round pick, or the San Francisco 49ers at pick 31 after they lost the Super Bowl, to be mocked Jalen Reagor. I don't think this talent he had at TCU is vanished, and if he goes to a good team with a good quarterback, I think he can contribute more than he can in Philly at the moment. And Philly fans, you guys wear this with pride, but you guys know you're not an easy franchise to play for, and especially not when a player at the same position you drafted has, no exaggeration here, the most receiving yards in NFL history through 2 years, while the player your team selected has less than 700 yards and 3 total touchdowns. I don't think they would do this, but I'd like him going to a team like the Browns to play behind Amari Cooper and have the spotlight off of him in the loaded AFC. Again, I don't think they would because of lack of draft capital with the Deshaun trade and the Amari trade as well, but to me, to act like Jalen Reagor is worthless isn't fair either. I just think he needs a change of scenery. And next we go to Tennessee to discuss not them trading anyone away, but the very real possibility of them trading up in next week's draft. And yes, it would be for a quarterback. When Ryan Tannehill balled out in 2019 and was the starting quarterback on the way to an AFC Championship game appearance, all was good for the Titans, and rightfully so. They were an overachieving team and couldn't have been happier with how the season went. They ended the Patriots dynasty, Tom Brady went to the Bucs shortly after, and they beat the 14-2 Ravens by 16 points and were up by 3 touchdowns in a playoff game. But in back-to-back years now with Tannehill at quarterback, they've lost in their opening playoff games. They had the bye week this year, so they lost in the divisional round. That was their opening playoff game. And even in 2021, when the defense sacked Joe Burrow 9 times in one game. There's buzz right now Tennessee could want any of the quarterbacks, even Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati, to replace Tannehill because, fair or not, he hasn't delivered in the postseason since the 2019 run when they beat the Patriots and the Ravens on the road. Every year, the NFL draft is extremely unpredictable, and with Derrick Henry playing a position that has a noticeably shorter shelf life than average, I would expect the Titans to make a move sooner rather than later. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel because it would truly mean the world. And until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.